She thought she could hurt you and still matter. Let me show you why your silence is her punishment. She walked away like you didn't exist, lied to your face while calling it love, used your loyalty as a stepping stone, played with your time, your effort, your soul, and still expected to matter in your story. You want revenge? You want to heal? Then you need to hear every word I'm about to say. Number 1, she wants a reaction. She doesn't walk away quietly. She leaves a trail of chaos and watches from the shadows to see if she still controls the strings she once pulled so easily. She expects pain to turn you into a puppet, not because she cares, but because your suffering makes her feel significant. She doesn't want to love you anymore, but she still needs to matter. So when she walks away, when she lies, when she cheats, when she replaces you with a lesser man who validates her delusions, she waits for the message, the angry call, the public reaction, the digital trail of posts that scream you still feel something, because as long as you feel something, she still has a piece of you. Your pain becomes her power, not because she is cruel by design, but because she has been conditioned to believe a man should react to maintain the illusion that her presence still holds value in his world. And the moment you feed her that reaction, you validate every excuse she created in her mind to justify the betrayal. And men everywhere fall into this trap because their need to be heard outweighs their need to be free. You want to speak your truth, tell her what she did, make her understand. But the reality is this: she knows exactly what she did, and she doesn't regret it until she no longer sees the evidence of your suffering. Your tears confirm her importance. Your anger confirms her impact. Your desperate explanations give her the script to cast herself as the victim, while you play the villain in the narrative she retells to herself and her next emotional audience. And so you talk, you rant, you send long messages thinking you're standing up for yourself. But in truth, you're just handing her another page of the script she gets to rewrite without your consent. You must understand that when you respond, when you try to negotiate with someone who broke you, you are trying to trade your pain for dignity in a marketplace that doesn't accept that currency. Her validation is no longer real estate you should want to rent space in. And the silence you withhold is not a punishment. It is a reset of your worth. It is the beginning of self-respect manifesting in action, not words, in withdrawal, not retaliation, in focus, not noise. And the moment you disappear without closure, without theatrics, without one last conversation, she begins to feel the void she never anticipated. Because your silence does not mean defeat. It signals detachment. And nothing scares someone who feeds on attention more than indifference from the man who once gave everything. When you walk away and keep walking, not as a strategy, but as a permanent decision rooted in clarity, you reclaim yourself from the cage of emotional manipulation. And this is not just about one woman or one betrayal. It is about the pattern, about how you were taught to believe that your emotions need validation from the very person who disrespected them. That your value should be defended to the person who discarded it. That love is something to chase, even after it spits in your face. And this belief is what keeps you broken long after she leaves. And yet here is the reality. She did not choose you when it mattered, so why do you still need her to understand your pain? Stop searching for healing in the hands that caused the wound. Stop broadcasting your grief like it's a badge of honor. Your hurt deserves attention. But not hers, not anymore. It deserves your attention, your time, your rebuilding. And the moment you stop reacting, you stop feeding the cycle, you stop justifying her actions with your response, and you begin the real journey, not of revenge, but of evolution. You see, the strongest men are not the ones who never get hurt, but the ones who know exactly where not to bleed. And that starts with mastering silence, not just externally, but internally. It's in the discipline to feel everything and still say nothing, to know that walking away without explaining yourself is not weakness but strength, to understand that your energy is your most valuable currency, And every time you spend it on someone who devalued it, you lower your own worth, and so you go silent. Not as a tactic, but as a transformation. Not as a way to win her back, but to never be in the position to lose yourself again. And the more you stay quiet, the more she begins to wonder, because you are no longer her emotional mirror. You no longer reflect her chaos. And in that darkness of unanswered questions, she is left alone with the consequences of her choices, while you, for the first time in a long time, begin to rebuild your foundation without her noise. And it's not easy. Silence requires self-control. It requires you to choose long-term respect over short-term satisfaction. It requires you to burn the bridge without throwing a match. Over your shoulder, but once you learn to do it, you never go back, because you understand that peace is louder than explanation, that presence is earned, not demanded, that a man who does not defend his value to someone who threw it away is not cold, he is clear, and that clarity becomes your compass, not just in relationships, but in life, because people will test you, they will provoke you, they will seek a reaction to feel powerful, and every time you choose not to give it, you choose to keep your power, and that power compounds. It builds momentum, and one day you'll look back at the version of yourself that begged, that pleaded, that needed her to see your pain, and you won't even recognize him because you'll be too busy building, too focused on the mission, too evolved to ever need someone's approval again. And that is the true punishment for anyone who took you for granted, watching you become untouchable. And when you reach that level of control where nothing rattles your peace and no one pulls you out of your power again, that's when you start rebuilding with intention. And that's exactly why I wrote the Stoic Relationship Blueprint, a life-changing guide crafted for men who are done reacting and ready to reclaim their clarity, their confidence, and their identity. It's built on timeless principles that shift how you handle betrayal, disloyalty, love, and self-respect, without noise, without drama, just unshakable inner strength. And now it's available in audiobook format, so you can listen to this transformation while jogging, walking, training, or even driving, because healing shouldn't wait for the perfect moment. Ask yourself, how many more cycles will you repeat before you start building something that can't be shaken again? This isn't a temporary fix. It's knowledge that stays with you for life, and once you own it, it's yours forever. No subscriptions, just raw, actionable wisdom at your fingertips whenever you need it. To make this even more powerful, you'll get 10% off the ebook plus audiobook bundle with code STOIC10 at checkout, only for the first 15 customers and only during this Black Friday month. The link's pinned in the comments. Don't let this pass you by. Change how you see yourself, change how you respond, and you'll change everything. Number 2, silence hurts her more. She doesn't leave expecting peace. She leaves expecting noise. She walks away and still expects access, not to your body, not even to your time, but to your reaction, to your attention, because in the world she's used to, attention equals relevance. And when you refuse to give her that attention, when you vanish without a trace, when you become unreadable, unpredictable, and unavailable, you remove her currency. You take away the oxygen she feeds off. And now she's left gasping for confirmation that she still matters, not because she regrets leaving, but because she needs the assurance that her decisions still affect you. This isn't about closure for her, it's about control. And when your silence replaces the conversations, the texts, the rants, the tears, she enters a spiral she wasn't prepared for, because silence isn't empty. It's confrontational in the most unexpected way. It forces her to face something she never had to deal with when she was still being chased, herself. And the thing is, she didn't expect to feel anything after hurting you, because in her mind, you'd always be there, always chasing, always reacting. And when that doesn't happen, when she looks at her phone and there's nothing, when she checks your story and sees no new posts, when she throws bait and hears nothing back, That's when confusion starts, because you were supposed to break. You were supposed to fall apart. You were supposed to make her feel important through your pain. And now you don't just look strong, you look indifferent. And indifference to someone who relies on significance is not just painful. It's devastating. Have you ever seen someone try everything to get a reaction and fail? It's not rage that breaks them, it's the void. It's the lack of acknowledgement that kills their pride, and that's exactly what your silence creates. She can't understand how you can go from everything to nothing, how you can simply close the door without one last scene. And now she's stuck wondering if she was ever valued, if she mattered, if she was replaced. Because the woman who thought she was the prize is now questioning if she was even part of the race. And while you're not speaking, not reacting, not engaging, she's having conversations with herself, building narratives in her head, rewriting history to fit a story that makes her feel less discarded. But your silence won't let her settle on a version of the truth that brings her peace, because there's nothing to interpret, nothing to twist, nothing to respond to. And that absence creates tension. She can't resolve, so she posts pictures hoping you'll see them, crafts captions aimed at you without naming you, shares memories pretending to reminisce while really just fishing for your attention. And when nothing comes, when the silence continues, that's when regret starts. But it's not the kind of regret that leads to accountability. It's the kind that leads to self-pity, to blame-shifting, to resentment masked as sadness. And what hurts her more than anything isn't what you said. It's what you didn't say, because now she has no idea how you feel. If you're hurting, if you're healing, if you're already gone for good. And that mystery eats at her in ways you'll never see, and you don't need to see it. Because this part of the journey isn't about her anymore. It's about you learning to let people feel the consequences of losing you without needing to explain what they lost. Your silence becomes your boundary, your shield, your declaration that your peace no longer depends on her recognition. And the more you stay silent, the clearer it becomes that you were never the weak one, that the strength to walk away without closure is rarer than love itself. And now you're walking into your life, not looking back, not flinching, not entertaining the past. And as she watches your absence turn into evolution, she will feel the weight of every decision she made with the belief that you'd still be around. And she won't say it, but deep down, she'll know she lost something she'll never be able to recreate, because no man gives her what you gave and then disappears without a trace unless he's finally found his worth. And the moment you become unavailable, you become unforgettable. Not because you chased, but because you didn't. Not because you explained, but because you didn't need to. And that silence will replay in her mind longer than any words ever could. She will hear it in the spaces between her distractions, in the pauses between her laughter, in the quiet after the parties, in the emptiness of being surrounded but unseen. And it's not because you cursed her, it's because you withdrew your blessing. And there's no replacement for a man who offered depth, who gave loyalty, who moved with integrity, who made her feel safe in ways she didn't even understand at the time. And by the time she does understand, you're long gone. Not because you're bitter, but because you're better. Better for choosing yourself, better for breaking the cycle, better for letting her feel the loss in its purest, most unfiltered form. Your absence, and the reason this works, isn't because you're playing a game. It's because you've stopped playing altogether. You're no longer in the arena of emotional roulette. You're building in silence, healing in silence, evolving in silence, and the power of that choice will echo longer than any confrontation ever could. So when she looks back, when she scrolls through your old messages, when she sees you in her dreams, when she thinks of everything you were and how easily she let it go, she won't just feel pain, she'll feel shame, and that shame will live where your presence used to, and she will remember, not because you reminded her, but because you didn't. Number 3, you take back power. You don't ask for your power back, You take it the moment you stop needing her to understand, the second you let go of that craving to explain why she was wrong, why she hurt you, why it destroyed you when she left. Because when you explain, you place yourself beneath her judgment, as if her validation is the missing piece to your recovery. And it's not. It never was. Because the truth is, you gave her too much. Not just love, not just time, but influence over how you saw yourself. And now that she's gone, you're standing in the wreckage, thinking if only she could admit it, if only she could see what she did, then maybe the pain would feel justified. But power doesn't come from her recognition. It comes from your refusal to need it, from your ability to sit in the silence, feel the cut, and still decide to rise without waiting for anyone to bandage the wound. It comes when you realize no apology can fix what you let slide for too long, that your worth isn't measured by how quickly she comes back, but by how confidently you move forward. And that moment of realization is where everything changes. Because now you're not reacting, you're not begging, you're building, and not out of spite, but out of clarity. You start to see her actions not as betrayal, but as exposure. She didn't ruin you, she revealed you, to yourself, to your patterns, to your blind spots, and most importantly, to your misplaced loyalty. And when that clarity hits, when you finally see how long you compromised your peace to keep someone who never deserved your presence, that's when your decisions become different. That's when you stop answering texts that disrupt your peace, when you stop explaining your silence to people who never respected your voice, when you stop defending your worth like it's up for debate, because it's not. And every time you sit in your stillness and choose not to chase what left, you reinforce that value. You remind yourself that peace isn't a reward you get from being good enough for someone else. It's a decision you make when you're finally done being disrespected, and from that point on, everything becomes intentional. Your time, your energy, your circle, because once you've seen what self-betrayal costs, you're no longer willing to pay it for temporary comfort. And this is when you start living differently, waking up early not to distract yourself, but because you're building, training not to impress her, but to discipline yourself, working not to prove anything, but because your mission is no longer fueled by external validation. And people notice, she notices, because the man you were when you needed her is gone, replaced by someone who doesn't just walk away. He evolves past the point where she can even reach him, and she'll try, not always directly, but through whispers, through mutual friends, through subtle signals, because once you stop giving her emotional access, she starts missing the control she thought she'd always have. But by then it's too late, because you're no longer in the business of explaining why someone lost you. You're too busy becoming the man who doesn't need to be found again. And this isn't about pretending to be unbothered. It's about becoming so deeply rooted in your truth that her presence or absence doesn't move you anymore. It's about the moment you sit in a quiet room, think about everything she did, and feel nothing but resolve, because that's when you know you've taken your power back. Not because you shouted, not because you got revenge, but because you stopped bleeding in places that never tried to heal you. And from here on, your life becomes a lesson to anyone who thought you were weak for caring, for trying, for being loyal in a time where loyalty is mocked. And she'll remember that version of you, the one who loved her fully, who gave her safety, who stayed even when he shouldn't have. And she'll compare every man after you to that standard, not because you were perfect, but because you were real, and now you're gone, not in bitterness, but in betterment. And that absence, that shift, that growth, it's louder than anything you could ever say. And as you keep building, as your body changes, as your bank account grows, as your energy becomes more refined, as your conversations deepen, you realize you don't even want her back. Not because she's the villain in your story, but because the man you are now wouldn't even look twice at the woman who left him when he was still figuring it out. And that's the full circle moment, when the pain no longer defines you, when the betrayal no longer breaks you, when her choices become irrelevant to your path, and everything you build from that point forward is yours, not stained by her memory, not motivated by revenge, but powered by the peace that comes from finally choosing yourself. And this is the highest form of power, not domination, not control, but detachment. The kind of detachment that says, I see you for who you are, I see what I tolerated, and I see now that none of it was love, it was habit, it was fear, it was self-abandonment, and I'm done with all of it, because you can't build your life on a foundation that shakes every time someone disrespects it. So you stop rebuilding bridges they burn. You stop offering explanations to people who never listened, and you move in silence, not to hurt them, but to protect you. And with every step you take forward, you become the evidence that peace is possible after betrayal, that strength is found in restraint, that growth comes when you finally stop trying to change someone else's story and start writing your own. And from that moment on, no one gets the old you, not because you've become cold, but because you've become clear. Number 4, she starts regretting. She doesn't regret leaving when she leaves. She doesn't feel guilt when she's out there smiling for pictures, posting captions that pretend she's unbothered, being seen in places you once talked about visiting together, lying in beds you once thought were sacred. She feels empowered at first, free from the accountability you held her to, convinced that walking away from a man who challenged her was a victory, because that's what her friends tell her, what social media celebrates, what her own pride disguises as growth. But regret doesn't come in the noise. It arrives in the quiet, in the silence, after the attention fades, in the realization that validation without connection is empty, that being desired isn't the same as being valued, and it creeps in when she starts to see that every new man she entertains lacks what you gave without asking, that the laughter feels forced, that the affection is shallow, that the sense of safety she felt with you wasn't just chemistry, it was character, and that's something you can't recreate with a rebound. And while you're not reaching out, while you're focused, while you're getting better in silence, she's spiraling in her own echo chamber, trying to justify what can no longer be justified. Because when a man like you disappears without bitterness, when you don't try to get even, when you don't make a scene, when you just elevate, that creates a discomfort she can't suppress. And it's not because she's evil, it's because she's exposed. Her choices are no longer shielded by your reactions, and now she has to sit with the fact that she broke something she will never be able to rebuild, and you won't see the regret publicly. Not at first. It shows in the subtle ways, in the texts she types but doesn't send, in the calls she considers making but can't justify, in the stories she posts, hoping you're still watching, in the random follow requests from burner accounts, in the mutual friends she suddenly checks in with because she's not reaching out to reconnect. She's reaching out to confirm if she still matters. And when you give her nothing, when you don't respond, when your page doesn't even acknowledge her existence anymore, that's when the regret deepens, because now she has to admit to herself that she was never chased out of your life. She was removed, and that removal wasn't emotional, it was strategic. It was rooted in a level of discipline she didn't think you had, and that discipline haunts her, because it means she never really had control, and now she replays every moment you stayed quiet, every time you could have lashed out and didn't, every opportunity you had to make her feel small, but instead walked away with your head up. And she starts to understand that the man she left was the man she thought didn't exist, the one who wouldn't fold, who wouldn't beg, who wouldn't sacrifice his integrity for comfort. And now the men she meets speak smooth but stand weak. They talk ambition but live distracted. They want access but offer no guidance, and the comparison is relentless, because no matter how much she tries to suppress it, your absence is the baseline now, the new standard she doesn't want to admit she lost. And it's not about missing love, it's about missing respect. Missing that feeling of being with someone who knew who he was, and you didn't have to say it. You showed it, and now she's dealing with the fallout, And the sad truth is, she won't tell anyone how she really feels. She won't say that she checks your page late at night, or that she cried when she saw you doing better, because the pride she held on to when she left is the same pride that keeps her silent now, and that pride becomes her prison. While you, without making a scene, without announcing your healing, without proving anything to anyone, you keep rising, you keep transforming. And that transformation is a mirror she avoids looking into, because it reflects what she gave up. Not because you're trying to be petty or cold, but because you've moved into a space where her existence no longer defines your narrative, and that reality is what she regrets more than anything. Not that you're gone, but that you're gone in a way that she can't reach anymore, not emotionally, not spiritually, not mentally, and that disconnect forces her to sit with the reality she created. Because when someone breaks something rare, thinking they'll find it again easily, the universe has a way of humbling them through emptiness, and while she pretends she's at peace, her soul keeps score. It remembers the man who stayed when he should have left, who loved without playing games, who gave her every chance to grow. And now that man is not angry, he's absent, not bitter, just better, and the regret that comes with that is unlike any heartbreak she's ever felt, because it's not loud or dramatic. It's a slow realization that she burned a bridge she can't rebuild, and the silence she once saw as indifference, she now understands as discipline, as strength, as wisdom. And that understanding doesn't bring closure. It brings consequences, and you, on the other side, are living proof that peace isn't found in payback, but in progress. That the most powerful thing you can do is heal without needing to be heard. And now she hears the silence in everything you don't say, in the spaces where your presence used to give her identity. And no matter what she does from this point on, that silence will echo longer than any closure ever could. Number 5. You become untouchable. You don't become untouchable by pretending you don't care. You don't get there by putting on a mask or playing the role of the unbothered man. You become untouchable the moment you realize that everything you once gave so freely, your presence, your patience, your consistency, your loyalty, your time, your peace, wasn't just an act of love. It was a reflection of your values. And when someone disrespects that, when someone treats those gifts like obligations instead of privileges, that's the last time they ever get to experience them. And this isn't about being heartless. It's about being finally honest with yourself. Because the truth is, you can't teach someone to value what they didn't earn. You can't convince someone to see what they chose to be blind to. And once you wake up to that, everything changes. Now you're not moving from pain, you're moving from power. You're not trying to make her miss you. You're making sure she never gets the chance to have access again. And that shift is spiritual, it's mental, it's in your walk, in your eyes, in the way you speak less and do more, in the way you no longer chase conversations that don't lead anywhere, in the way you now say no without guilt, in the way you've accepted that peace doesn't need an audience, it just needs boundaries, and boundaries are not threats, they are protection. And when you become a man who protects his peace above attention, you become rare, you become unpredictable, and unpredictability isn't mystery, it's power. Because now no one can gauge your worth by how fast you respond. No one can shake your routine with a single message. No one can interrupt your growth with drama wrapped in affection, because the emotional leash they once had on you is gone, cut by discipline, burned by clarity. And when you walk through life with this kind of energy, everything and everyone begins to shift. People notice that you're no longer accessible in the same way. And she notices, the woman who thought she could circle back, who thought time would weaken your resolve, who believed your silence was just temporary strategy and not permanent elevation. She sees now that you're not just gone. You've outgrown her access point, and that access point wasn't physical, it was emotional, It was the comfort she had in knowing that no matter what happened, you'd still be there, still responding, still hoping, still reaching. But that version of you is buried under layers of progress. She no longer has the patience or depth to uncover. And the more you keep moving, the more you keep improving, the more unreachable you become. Not because you blocked her, but because you've risen to a frequency where she no longer exists. And this kind of growth doesn't happen in one night. It happens in every decision you make when no one is watching. It happens when you choose discipline over impulse, when you stop explaining yourself and start executing, when you stop justifying your peace to people who thrive in dysfunction, when you finally understand that your time isn't free and your attention is expensive, and the cost to be in your life is consistency, effort, truth, and anything less is disqualified on sight. And now the woman who thought she could treat you like an option is watching you become the standard, watching you elevate without her being part of the story anymore. And it hits differently when the man she once thought would never change becomes the man she no longer qualifies for. Not because you're playing games, but because you're playing life differently. And in this new game, the rules are set by purpose, by clarity, by experience, by wounds that have healed not with time, but with truth. And truth is, you were too available to someone who wasn't ready, too forgiving to someone who wasn't sorry, too consistent to someone who was temporary. And that's over now, because untouchable doesn't mean arrogant, it means focused. It means your energy no longer bends to keep people comfortable. It means your schedule no longer has space for confusion. It means your identity is no longer up for negotiation. And this kind of man doesn't get played. He gets remembered, not as the one that got away, but as the one they could never get close to again. And she feels that now, every time she sees you smiling without her, every time she hears your name, and it's no longer attached to drama or pain, but to growth and presence. Every time she scrolls past your silence and realizes she doesn't know anything about you anymore. And that unknown is what keeps her awake, because the man you were wasn't the final version. He was the blueprint and the final version, the one who no longer reacts, no longer explains, no longer entertains. He's untouchable, not because he's hiding, but because he's building. And buildings don't chase people. They stand tall. They stand firm, they let time do the talking, and now time is talking. It's telling the world that you are no longer who she used to know, and that loss is something she'll carry long after you've moved on, because she didn't just lose a man, she lost the man who saw her at her worst and still chose to give her his best. And that's not something you replace. That's something you remember when it's too late, and you don't have to remind her of that. Your absence says everything. Your growth says everything. Your peace screams what your voice no longer needs to say. And now every interaction she has will feel hollow, not because you were perfect, but because you were real. And nothing fake can ever fill the space realness once occupied. And while she tries to fill that void with noise, you remain silent, building, ascending, untouchable, not by design, but by decision. If you've made it this far, it means deep down, you're done being played, disrespected, and forgotten like you never mattered. Society doesn't want you to think like this. They don't want you to wake up. They want you soft, reactive, emotional, apologizing for having standards. That ends today. If you're ready to become the man they can't lie to, the man they can't walk away from without regret, then the Stoic relationship blueprint is your next step. This book is filled with timeless truths that you were never supposed to hear, real Stoic principles that will rewire how you deal with betrayal, relationships, and power. It's now available as an audiobook too, so you can listen while walking, training, even when you're moving through the world in silence, becoming untouchable. Comment, "I choose power," if you're ready to claim this knowledge and walk differently from today. Like this video and subscribe so more men can escape the lies and save themselves years of regret. The ebook plus audiobook bundle is 10% off with code STOIC10, only for the first 15 people, this Black Friday month only. The link is in the comments. Grab it, own it, and never be the same again.